The World Economic Forum wraps up today after several days of high-level speeches and, of course, meetings. And our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, has been there rubbing shoulders with some of the political stars in attendance. Let's cross over to him in the snow of Davos. Morning to you, Darren. So you've had, whatever it is, 5 days or 4 or 5 days there. Give us an idea of your highlights. What are the sort of key themes this year at Davos?
Well, as always, Belle, Davos kicked off with that report from Oxfam, as it does, it must be said, every year, focusing on inequality, a continuing sign that we do live on an unequal world to many regards, with suggestions that the wealthiest 26 people in the world are worth as much as the bottom 50%, so 3.8 billion people. But I think if there's a takeaway really from this week, it really has been the focus on climate change. It has been the standout essentially issue over the last 4 or 5 days or so. We've heard everything and everyone, from Sir David Attenborough, the British television star, to Prince William, to the United Nations, and indeed to many business leaders focus on that particular issue. They feel that this has clearly got to a point where climate change could potentially become irreversible, but also, interestingly for business, a chance potentially where climate change and renewable energy has become something that business could work with because simply it has become economically feasible. And on top of that, there has always been, as one would expect, Belle, a focus on politics and a focus on the global economy. Now, we know that the Chinese economy is stumbling somewhat. That is also true of economies in Europe, not least of all Germany's. And there is a fear, I think, particularly in Europe this year, that and those faltering economies could have an impact on the EU-wide elections, that it could well feed into the populism that we've seen growing throughout 2018. And that was certainly a point that I picked up with Alex Stubb. He's the former Prime Minister of Finland. He's a man who tried to become the EPP's Spitzenkandidat candidate this year. Let's have a listen to the interview I had with him just a couple of days ago.
A lot of people here are saying is that, we can see the benefits of globalization, free trade, the market economy. It basically increases the size of the economy, the size of the cake, and gives us economic growth. But where we have failed miserably worldwide around the last few years is to share that cake in a more equal fashion. So I think we're moving more from a capitalist world towards a social world. And if we do that, I call it the Nordic model, I think we can mitigate a lot of the populist movements. But we will still see a lot of populism in 2019. It's here to stay.
But don't populists play on actually events like this, on Davos, and they say, look at these elites staying in their $10,000 hotel rooms, flying in with a private jet, and they can't relate to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. One of the most interesting sessions I had here was a refugees session. In other words, you have real-life refugees speaking about what it is like to be a refugee, and I think this is the type of interaction that you need to see more, because there is this sort of helicopter view that we always have at Davos, elites getting together, and I think this needs to be now a get-together more of what I would call normal people, because it's all easy for me, having been educated abroad, having been Prime Minister and the rest of it, to come here and talk with other globalists who read The Economist, the Financial Times, and watch Euronews to talk about the same stuff. But you don't get a real feel. It would be nice to have Davos somewhere else, have Davos in a refugee camp and see what it's like after that.
Really interesting there what Stubb was saying, essentially that the messages circulating at Davos are not trickling down to, in inverted commas, normal people. Is that a feeling that's shared, do you think, across the forum?
I think it is to a degree, Belle, in the sense that there is clearly a recognition here that we are in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, on the top of the Swiss Alps in the middle of winter. Clearly, people's ability to connect with the real world, with ordinary people, not just in Europe, but indeed worldwide, is pretty limited. But I think any sense that somehow this event or the people who attend it are going to change, that is simply, I don't think, going to happen anytime soon. There clearly is every year an attempt to include more women, people from different ethnic minorities, people who may well have disabilities. But fundamentally, this is an elitist club. It is meant to be the most powerful, the most wealthy people in the world getting together to talk about some of the most important issues. But don't be in any sense that this is going to move to a refugee camp or in some ways be much more representative of the world we live in. That is simply not what Davos is about, and I don't think that is going to change anytime soon.